Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the hill.
Welcome in. Greg Ruff along with you for the 10th edition of the Purple Ties Podcast. And Michael Johnson, you can see on the other side of the screen from me, and in between us is a man that we love a great deal, and most of you will know who he is. You may call him different things, though, Coach or Smitty or whatever it may be, but Alan Smith is going to join us here. I once, for about a year, called him doctor, and his wife finally corrected him and said he doesn't have his doctorate, but I think he does have a doctorate in life. But Alan Smith joined us. Alan is in the NAIA Hall of Fame. He's one of two Trevecca connections in the NAIA Hall of Fame, and he's also in the Trevecca Hall of Fame, and he's just a great friend to Trevecca. And on Father's Day weekend, we thought that he would be a great one to have because he has been a father to so many, not only his own kids, but so many generations through the years at Trevecca. Michael, I'll let you, we're going to tag team our introduction here. I'll let you introduce Alan as well.
Well, yeah, he is one of many people at Trevecca over the years who was actually my boss. He was
right.
He was the athletic director who fired me as softball coach and then hired me as women's softball coach. Later on, he didn't so much fire me as tell me that Angela Sullivan was just going to be a better fit for coach than I was.
You had too good of an assistant.
But no, I joke about that. I tell people when I was coaching softball for that one year, my best recruit was Angela Sullivan.
That's right.
Getting her involved with the program. Wow, what a great person she was. And then the joy that I had to coach women's golf. Well, Alan was the athletic director. You know, we had a good run with a lot of sports back during that time. I think it'd be fun for people. I always like to do this with people who have had a long connection to Trevecca. I love to know how they got to Trevecca. You and your wife, Carolyn, kind of came together, I think, as a package deal. You went to Asbury College in Kentucky, and how did you get to Trevecca? Just start there, if you would.
We applied to Trevecca in several places, Bryan College, and we're going to change positions, come to Tennessee, and met Dr. Moore in Lexington, Kentucky. And he said the PE department had just got accredited, and he wanted to build up the teaching, which the PE teachers, which Carol and I both were, and had our masters. So he was trying to do that, and that was my start. Dr. Moore was a dreamer. He was a good one, and he stuck with me through the whole time.
What year was that?
1971 in the fall, and played tennis in 72.
Fantastic.
When I came to Trevecca, they said Dr. Donahoe had just built 6 tennis courts or raised the money for it. And I had started a tennis team at Asbury, and they said, well, you started one there, why don't you start one here? And I said, I came here to teach. So the first couple of years were just people who were already in school. So that was the start right there. Wasn't planning on it, but it worked out pretty good for tennis. That would be
a pretty good segue then to your coaching career. As Greg mentioned, you're in the NAIA Athletic Hall of Fame. How many years did you coach tennis at Trevecca?
It was 20 here. I had 2 years at Asbury and then 20 here. So it was quite a run and a whole lot to tennis. But teaching and doing so well in tennis with the team doing so well, they asked me to be on the tournament committee, and I was probably on that 8 years. So that was a joy to not only to coach, but to be on the national tournament committee and the ranking committee. So
I was in school at Trevecca a year or two ahead of Greg, but Greg and I got to see some amazing tennis players that you were able to recruit to Trevecca. I know you say you started out with primarily students who were already in school, but what really flipped the switch for you in terms of taking it to a whole different level of competitiveness?
Man, I usually know his name. He played at Carson Newman, and when I became coach, I was asking him how how Carson Newman was so good. They had won it like 10 straight years.
Okay.
And we talked with him, and he was the guy that told me I need to recruit a 6th player, because 6 players used to get more points than their number 1 player. And that took a different type player. And then he moved on to Austin P. And when he moved to Austin P, I saw him again and was talking to him, and he says, "Do you need 2 Swedes?" And I says, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, they have a ranking system over there. The ranking system goes with fast courts or asphalt courts." And he says, "That's what I need. But the players I've got play on clay courts, and I don't want to risk it." So he says, "Do you want them?" And I says, "Well, they got to be as good as some of my players. If they played 3 and 4, they'd still push some people down." So I said, "Let me try it." And that's when Dick and Stefan Carlson came. Dick Johansson, Dick and Stefan. And they both became All-Americans. But,
Yeah.
so
That's
was
fantastic.
quite a ride.
That's fantastic.
Both of those guys stay in contact with me, which they really built the program, those 2 guys.
That's so cool. I know you have Magnus Berglund. I think you told me is down at TPC Sawgrass Tennis Club in Jacksonville area. And then Juan Carlos.
Juan Carlos Bianchi.
Yeah.
He's in Florida and Orlando running
in Orlando.
Camp.
Yeah.
He's a Venezuelan.
Coach Smith and I were talking before you were online here with us. He said that, you know, at the end of Alan's 20 years, we had to make some tough financial decisions, and sadly the tennis program had to go away back there several years ago. But Juan Carlos was, you know, I guess he was our best player, right? I mean,
as far as overall, he's the only one made the tour in doubles.
Okay.
Professional tour.
So when our program ended, he was able to transfer to the University of Alabama, where he was their number 1 player as well. So, you know, if not for that unfortunate, you know, time where we had to make that difficult decision, we might have had another tennis Hall of Famer, from what I can tell, what I remember. Talk just for a moment. We talked about some of the tennis players that went on to do some things with their athletic career, but you had some amazing stories of players that played for you who have made their mark in other areas as well, maybe particularly in education. Tell us about some of those guys.
Yeah, getting the international student was not my intent. I thought I'd wind up with 2. So I had 10 years of what I would call just American players, just that were born in America. And those guys were just as much fun as any, because, of course, we were in a different conference a lot of times. But they were just people who came to school here, wanted to come to school here and play. And those were great guys. And those guys were going back to Morse Stocks, who everybody knows about him almost, I guess. It went to Ole Miss to teach and became a provost and then to interim president for 1 year. And he's been there the whole time and changed not only Ole Miss, but the whole face of Oxford, Mississippi. He's been a fantastic person.
That's right.
Then those guys on that team were, before he left, with Charlie Gray, who became an orthopedic surgeon, I think.
Right.
And Tony Lindsay, who's now chair of the psychiatry medical department at University of North Carolina. And keeping up with these guys are pretty interesting, because you had a chance for them to go on and really see what they could do.
Dr. Randy Carden.
Randy Carden, well, he's solid. I mean, his wife was a cheerleader for my wife, so I mean, they're like family.
That's awesome.
Steve Perry came on later on and teaching at Regis, and had a couple of preachers in there, Dale Snidebiller and Ricky Creel.
Yeah.
And those were people who really brought in the system. I mean, as far as life changers with Ricky Creel.
That's awesome. I should toss it back to an intramural all-star over there with Greg Rupp. You know, actually, I could say that I was a 2-sport all-star as an intramural player during those years. I have an all-star trophy for softball and for B-League basketball, I think. So,
well, go ahead, Alan.
those days, we started out with tackle football, and I had to be there every Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, I was up there with a good talent group. I mean, those were very talented people, and then Merles, they just didn't want to put the time in to play varsity sports. I mean, they were some good athletes. So I was up there that whole time, and probably the first 10 years of teaching, I was up there every Saturday with some type of sport, whether it's basketball or football.
That's great.
So I met a lot of different people, and I don't know if you remember Ronnie Shields, but those guys would argue. As you probably heard, the people that argue the most in church softball are the pastors. But anyway, that's what they told me. But Ricky, Ronnie Shields would just wear me out with officials because we just found some people to referee. And I finally learned that he was not arguing me as much. They said he was so interested in the program. Those guys awesome. Were just, then I quit taking it personal, and we had a lot of fun in intramurals. But
I remember Dennis Goodwin being really super engaged in intramurals when we were in school. And so it probably shouldn't be any surprise that he's been at Donaldson Christian all these years as a state championship football coach and actually a legend in the TSSAA as athletic director now for all these years at DCA. And there's dozens of others we could talk about. Greg, you had the honor of working for Alan for many years while he was athletic director. I wonder if you would take it from here and kind of walk us through that part of this amazing man's career.
Absolutely. I want to just clarify that I was an all-star in intramurals. It was just on my own team, not actually in the league. No, I actually came across some old football pictures. We played in full pads and all that kind of stuff, and it was great. And that it actually was more scary when they took the pads away and went to flag because everybody kept playing tackle without the pads. But those were great days, and that's how I first got to know Coach Smith, Smitty, and took tennis from him. I don't know if he remembers that or not. I had actually passed that class, but just a great man. He was a mentor to me as an undergrad here, and then was hired by Alan Sharp to be SID prior to Alan Smith becoming the AD, and Alan, I worked for him for I don't know how many years. It was over a decade. But Alan, working for Alan every day was a pleasure. He had to fuss at me every once in a while, and when he did, I knew that he loved me, and he would tell me that he loved me, and he became a father figure to me because my dad passed away right before I started working at Trevecca. And so he kind of filled the role as boss and as a father figure for me, and was willing to tell me when I was wrong. And he did that for a lot of people. And I think that's one of the things that I would want to share with people about him is he was able to say tough things, and you knew that he loved you, and that made you listen even more. And I think our world today could use a little bit more of that, a few more Alan Smiths. But one of the things I would say about Alan's time as athletic director here is that we were pretty good when he became athletic director, but we weren't winning championships. And it was only a couple of years into his regime and his hiring practices and his mentorship of all the coaches and the athletes, we started winning championships in the conference, and lots of them. And we went from not winning any championships in the Trans-South to winning it in almost every sport, and having All-Americans and making it to the national tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And if you go back and look at the mid-2000s, that was Alan Smith doing that. And to me, that also fueled the hope and the belief that we could actually make it in Division II, because before Alan was AD, we talked about going Division II, but we never really pulled the trigger. But the success that we had in the mid-90s gave Dr. Boone and other people at the university the hope that we could actually compete at D2, and then we went on to actually prove that. So that's what I would say about Alan. And I would say, Alan, what was it what was your philosophy when you became athletic director that helped you choose some great coaches in there?
Well, I go back to when you were the AD, the SID.
I haven't been the AD.
Those are some tremendous changes. I mean, when you started out, there wasn't any computer stuff or hardly any broadcast or anything. I mean, the growth rate in there in the SID field was just tremendous from getting stats and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you survived that. That was such a hard thing to overcome and just keep up with. I mean, I know I got my first computer when I was through those days, and it just blew us away in communication. And now you're probably the longest reigning SID in the conference by far than any other schools had. It's been very consistent. But when Steve Harris came to me, I had already lost the tennis program, or the tennis program had been retired, and he asked me to come unite the department. So I felt like my job was to try to get everybody on the same page and to support everybody. And it just seems like it just picked up. Everybody was ready to work together, and different teams came. If you remember the basketball team, a baseball team came, supported basketball, and talk about Dennis Goodwin. My wife had more than one meeting with Dennis Goodwin when he'd pick up the keys and say, "Go start the bus." If you remember that chat.
Yeah.
So when we think of Dennis Goodwin, is go start the bus. And I'm wondering how he handled that at DCA. he should have been ready for those guys because he was one of them. But
that's awesome.
That was a fun time because everybody, I think, just got together. I mean, it was a time for it to just take off, and I was a part of it. It's just, we was talking about players and the doctors, and Kevin Beard was one of those, and it became an optometrist. But when you think in my position, Kevin Beard was a good example. He was on one of my first tennis teams. He couldn't practice every day because you're trying to get in med school. And he came to me one day and crying, and he couldn't get into med school. I'd just been to see my optometrist, and I said, "Greg, you ever thought about who am I talking about here? What's his name? I forgot his name now. Well, anyway, he couldn't get into med school. I said, "Why don't you try to go get in?" Kevin Beard.
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin, why don't you try to go get an optometry school? And he took off and saw me as fecal. Come to find out, he became an optometrist, and he gave me credit for it. And I think a lot of things in my life is, as long as I sought the Lord first, these things came as a blessing, because all I was trying to do was befriend somebody or help them in a low spot. And I get credit for a guy being a doctor.
Does Greg Daly give you credit for his incredible career in business, for helping him get those Asahi tennis shoes that he sold by the dozens back there around 1980?
He did. He sold them. But we knew Greg we knew he was going to be rich. He said it. He made the statement that he was going to be rich. And he had his goal there. I bet I followed him until he got to Elm Street, that changed his business down there, and then he moved over to Maryland Farms. I followed him a while, and then I've lost contact with him. But
I guarantee you, he would be happy to hear from you. I'll try to get you guys in touch. He is an example, and so are people like guys that I can think of, like Rick Underwood and Ralph Swallows and any number of other people who attended school back there in the 70s during some of your early years. Who maybe didn't major in PE or play a sport, but they were people that counted you among their most trusted advisors, and that's, for me, one of the things about working at Trevecca that has kept me steady all of these years, because it is about the relationships as much as it is about the job that we're assigned. Yeah. And I'm looking here at a screen right now, and it's a conversation of old friends, and
that's right.
And Trevecca's the place that brought us all together.
Well, we talk about the ties, purple ties, and that was the name of this that Michael came up with. And I'm going to talk about one. This is the last thing I have to contribute to this. I want Alan to talk about this. You had a guy by the name of Jeff Boyett, and he came to play for you. And great guy. He was a guy that I went to school with. and he came here. And this is all about being a father figure, and this is what I think about when I think about Al Smith. His son, you befriended his son, Cameron, and followed him down at Eagleville, helped him get here to Trevecca. And I'll never forget, we had an Alan Smith named baseball tournament. You threw out the first pitch to that one, and you threw it to Cameron Boyett. And and that was yes. And just talk about that and how, because those are the moments, those are the ties that bind us and what makes Trevecca special, and what makes you special about Trevecca and all the connections you have. Because we could sit here for 2 hours and tell more stories just like that. But I know that's special to you. I know Jeff Boyett was special to you. He came out of McGavock and played for you, and then to have his son come here and play 4 years, I think 5 years of baseball actually. But just talk about that a little bit.
When I went to recruit Jeff Boyett, and he decided to come, I gave him an application, and he said, "There's a thing on here, I don't know what it is." He said, "What's the denomination mean?" And I said, "You don't know what a denomination is?" And he said, "No." I said, "You ever been to church?" "No." I said, "Well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that. Just leave it alone." And he didn't really have a church family father image there that was really healthy. He was good for him for his business for a while, but not for family. And I saw Jeff Boyett join the church, be baptized. You might not let me make it through this one, but he's been 10 years since he passed away. I stayed in contact with his wife. She raised 4 kids. 3 of them are now married. 2 of them have come to Trevecca, and Cameron was one of those guys. And he's now a father and got 2 kids. And Cameron went into special education, and talked to him one time, and his mother was bragging on him because he'd gone into special education, and his church did not have anybody to take care of special ed kids. He volunteered to take care of those special ed kids on Sunday, even though that was his job during the week, so those people could have somebody. That's the reason he came to Trevecca was he said, "I saw the difference it made in my dad's life." That's huge, and that's great. Ooh. Oh yeah. Man, that's strong. So here, I don't know why. I don't never know why the Lord takes some people and leave some, but they took Jeff Boyett. The Lord took Jeff Boyett home, and with 4 kids, and I don't understand that, but he had left an imprint. He took over, helped me coach the women's tennis team, helped me with the ranking committee. He was my adopted son. I mean, he was right there with me all the way, and proved faithful to the end. So he was one of those, in Ralph Wallace, you tested Ralph Wallace, he said, a guy like me came to Trevecca and be able to play on a varsity team, people don't realize how important that is to them. It's just all the sports people we have, and it really means a lot to them. That's where we saw it. So awesome. Rick Underwood, he was ready to go home. And see where he is today, and if he had left school, he wouldn't be where he is today. I mean, he's wow. I got a lot of blessings. I tell you what, I got more blessings than I put in it, I'm sure. But Pella Narkistam, who wrote, and he's been on the for you've interviewed him before, and he came back here for his 50th birthday, and he says, "I want to come to America and see you on my 50th birthday." And, and that was, you never know what the you have on somebody, but it paid off.
So I got a call from a lady that I had never met before about a year or 2 ago, and it turns out that it was the mother of Dick's son, who's a pretty good tennis player. He's playing up at a college up in Pennsylvania, but he wanted to come see where his dad played tennis.
Isn't that good?
Because Dick had talked about Trevecca and Nashville, and we just had a great time, touring the campus, and I've kind of stayed in touch, with that family. And it causes me to be reminded that in a time of great uncertainty in our world, that places like Trevecca still really matter. And they matter mainly Well, they're educational institutions first and foremost, but they matter because of the ties that bind us together. And I don't want to be over dramatic, but that purple ties thing means a lot to me because we're talking about all these different purple ties here today that we kind of tend to forget about unless we tell the story.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I
called her. You gave me her number, and I called her. She said she would bring you by when he comes back to town. Because I would like to tell him he really helped us.
Yeah,
he's got a singing career now as well as tennis.
Yeah,
he's got a rank girl over in Sweden that's done real well.
That's awesome.
So
it was good to get together and cry with you guys. By the way,
you're the one that made it happen. I was doing all right if you brought up Jeff Boyett, even though.
Like I said, we could talk about a lot more, and we've been going for over 25 minutes now, and it feels like it's been 5. But I will close my closing comments will just be that I love both of you, but I love Alan Smith, and you've been a father figure to me, and I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to on this Father's Day weekend than you.
Well, thanks. I got one point I want to make. All the guys that I had 75 players. All those that played for me for 4 years, all but 2 graduated.
Wow.
And one of them was Jeff Chanley, and he said, I'm going to be a tennis pro. I don't need a degree, and he's a tennis pro today down in Atlanta. He still hosted tournaments. And the other was Jeff Long. And Jeff Long says, I just wanted to play tennis because I loved it. He said, I don't want to graduate, don't need a degree, and he's now retired. So those 2 didn't want to, everybody else that wanted to. And I had a lot of people go to Memphis State, UT, different places, Alabama. And
I couldn't do anything to retaliate against Jeff Long, but I'm pretty sure Jeff Chandler was the guy that I backed out into in the parking lot down at the Married Student Apartments my senior year, and dented his car up pretty good.
Well, he was a good one.
Oh,
I stay in touch with him.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good to visit with you guys today. We're going to wrap up this 10th edition. It was a good one, and appreciate everyone for watching. We'll have it on social media. Hope you'll share it and like it, and we'll see you next time here on Purple Ties.
Thanks
for having me.
Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the Hill.